everybody, it's Emily from Life Sew Savory, and today I'm going to be sewing myself a really cute cardigan. I should have brought down a couple of examples because this is one of my staple cardigan patterns, and I currently have two versions of it already sitting in my closet. And anyway, I didn't bring one down, so you're just going to have to tune in to the end to see what the final cardigan looks like. So I've put for you in the description of this video the links to the free pattern and to the pocket hack that I am going to be doing. And actually, since I created this pocket hack for this cardigan, I have not gone back and sewed the original version because I just love the large gathered pocket so much. So you can see both of those links in the description of this video and check out again what this final project is going to look like. While I go ahead and just do my couple shares here, edit this post to put a link in it, and that's what I'm going to be doing. So I'm glad you're here. And happy Wednesday. So I'm glad to see you, and happy that you're here. Please let me know what you're up to today, what's going on, anything too exciting. I have a super fun free pattern coming your way on Friday, and I'm gonna give you a little sneaky peek here in a minute. So it is a really fun pattern for your littler ones. So not anything for women this time, but yeah, something for your kids. Black jeans, that sounds fun. I actually just bought a pair of black jeans. I did not make them. It's been a long time since I have sewn myself a pair of jeans, which I'm not exactly sure why, because the first one I made myself, I think, 2 pairs several years ago, and they both turned out great. So not really any particular reason why I would be scared to try again, but I guess it's something I just don't care to spend the time on because I feel like it's a pretty time-consuming project, and you know me, I just adore sewing with knits. So probably I'll make all the tops to go with my jeans. So like I made this sweater and I'm wearing it with jeans that I bought. So I love doing that sort of mix. Okay, so thank you guys for being patient. I'm doing a couple more shares here. Let people know we're on, and then we're gonna get started. So if you missed the beginning, today we are going to be sewing my free cardigan pattern. It's a really cute one, and I have actually 2 versions sitting upstairs, and I forgot to bring one down. I was actually thinking I should have worn one today, but I didn't. And today I'm making it out of waffle knit. So I'm gonna try and do that. And that will be something a little bit different. And then we're gonna do the large pocket hack. So make sure that you check out both links that I've put in the description of this video, because one is for the pattern and one is for the pocket hack. And like I said, since I first made this large pocket hack on this pattern, I have not gone back to the original pockets. I always now make it with the larger pockets, and it really is a staple of mine. But okay, so those of you who are here now, before we get sewing on the cardigan, let's take a sneak peek at my new free pattern for Friday, which is a girls romper pattern, and it is so cute. So here is the short version, and then I'm working on one with short sleeves and long pants right now. It has pockets, which of course we all love, elastic in the waist, a fun elastic neckline, and just a basic knit romper. So that is what's going to be coming on Friday. So the pattern will have long pants and then those I just shortened to shorts. And I want to be able to show you how easy it is to make both versions. So that's what is coming Friday. So make sure you mark your calendars. Head back to Life Sew Savory first thing Friday morning and download your free copy of that romper pattern. It will come in sizes 4 through 16, like many of my girls' patterns have been lately. So that is what is coming your way. And today, like I said, we're sewing up a cardigan. So let me show you what I already have cut out, and then we will go ahead and get sewing on it. So that's what's next. All right, so like I said, I'm gonna make this out of waffle knit, which is something new for me. So I have already cut the bands that we will be adding like around the open cardigan and the bottom, and then I'm actually hoping to put these bands along the top of the pocket for a little extra detail as well. So hopefully I cut enough because I don't have any more of this particular fabric. I was kind of using up some scraps. And then we're gonna make the pockets out of this floral, and I'm actually gonna cut the pockets so you can see how I'm cutting them. And then the main cardigan is out of this green waffle knit. So a combination of, you know, these 3 fabrics that I think all go together pretty nicely is what I'm going to be creating today. So we have the front and back. Both are cut in 2 pieces. The back has a seam down the middle. So nothing is cut on the fold. And then we're going to create these oversized pockets. So what I like to do is place my fabric. So I have it folded in half because I'm going to cut 2 at the same time. Put my fabric on, how about that, is that better? Fabric on the cutting board, and then I'm going to place my cardigan pattern on top of it, okay? So this is the size that I want to make my pocket, but what we do with the gathered pocket is we make the side along the side seam way longer, taller, and then we gather it up so that when we sew it on, there's a fun gathered detail along that side seam. So, and then like I said, I want to add the band of the pink just to kind of tie it all together. So, and I'm going to cut 2 in near here in one fell swoop because I have my fabric folded in half. So I'm going to start by cutting along the bottom edge, and we just really match up the dimensions along the side. So I'm going to keep the full height here on the side so that we have some room to gather. But then on this side, I'm not going to cut it as far because we won't be gathering the side on the open front, okay? So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know, maybe we'll make it 8 inches tall, and then with my band, it'll be about a 9-inch tall pocket. So I think that is looking really good. So I'm gonna leave that cut there. And then this cardigan pattern has been used and folded many times. I was noticing today it's kind of wrinkly. Might be time. I try not to print patterns out new every time. I just kind of fold them and keep them. But sometimes they get mauled too much. Okay, so now I have my straight edge clear ruler, and I'm going to use it to cut that angled top. Now really, so here's what we have. Now really what we're going to do is gather this angled long side so that it matches the other side, okay? So you're kind of cutting a fun trapezoidal shape that we will gather the long side to match the short side. We'll put a top on, or you can hem it as in the original version that I made. I'm kind of editing it just slightly this time. And then we'll be able to just match it to those front panels of the cardigan and sew it on. So that's what we're going to be doing, adding fun, I like big pockets on my cardigans, and I'm checking it out from there. So now it's time for us to start sewing. Okay, so let's swing over here make sure. I have pink on my serger, which isn't ideal for the dark green, but I think I'm just gonna go with it because I didn't really want to change just for this. And this is a pattern that you can make almost entirely with your serger. Maybe I can make the whole thing with my serger, so we'll see. Maybe a little bit of top stitching down at one point, but it's really a great serger friendly project. And if you don't have a serger, you can totally be using your knit stitch or zigzag. That's another thing with this romper pattern that I'm sharing. I did one with all the top stitching with a zigzag, and then the other one, I used the double needle, which is what's on my machine right now. So, oh, Michelle. So they actually called and said my cover stitch is ready. They were having trouble like I was. You know how it's a double cover stitch, and that top looper, I had taken off the pieces because they're removable, and when I went to put them back on, the timing was off. So I think they also had trouble doing that when they were maintaining it. They had called me a couple weeks ago and said, we can't get the timing right. We've been talking to brother and trying to figure it out. But they called yesterday and said that it's ready. So I just haven't gone to pick it up because it's, I don't know, 20 minutes away. And that's not always high on my priority list to drive and get my machine, especially when I've been doing without it now for so long. So it is ready, and I will be going to get it here shortly. So yay, maybe by next week. Okay, so I'm gonna first use my serger to gather that long side. Okay, so shorter side here, longer side here. We're gonna run down. I've tightened up the needles, and I have change the differential feed to 2, which is as short as it goes, which it will feed the fabric quicker through and help to gather it. So those are the 2 things we're going to do. Let's see how this gathers up this side of the pocket and if it is kind of what we're looking for. So we can always tighten it up a little bit, but I'm actually hoping it'll be pretty close to what we want after feeding it through one time. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a tail so that gathering doesn't come undone. So you can see how the machine just gathers it up nicely. And then I'm going to fold it in half and kind of compare it to the other side. And it gathered it pretty well, the same size now as that front. So we're just going to go ahead and leave that. So the long side is gathered, the short side is just left. And we'll go ahead and do that on the other piece as well. Gather it up. All right, and now I'm going to put my settings back because sometimes when I don't and then I start sewing again, it's all wonky. So I'm going to do that right away, putting those back. And now I'm going to add a little bit of a band instead of a hem on the top of the pocket. So if we can see here, this is the outer edge, and we have 2 mirror pockets. Okay, maybe I need to move down here a little bit so you can see that. Okay, so this will be the inner open edge of my cardigan, and this is the side seam edge of my cardigan. So to put the band on the top, I'm going to take this piece that I cut. It's 2.5 inches tall, and I cut that to also enclose all of the raw edges of the cardigan. I'm going to sew it along the top edge of my pocket. You could also at this point turn over the top edge and hem it. So that's what I have done on the other versions of this that I've made, but I thought I would try something a little bit different today. Okay, and then go ahead and trim off. I just cut long strips for the binding. So there's the top of one pocket. Let's go ahead and do the other. This pink is a brushed waffle knit, so it has a super soft side, and then a just normally soft side, because I think waffle knit is a pretty soft fabric. So the brushed is beautiful. So I'm putting that out. And now we get to sew that top of the pocket and create that hem or that band on the top. So I'm sewing 3 layers of fabric, 2 layers of the band, but it's not really a band because it's more like a cuff, because I'm not, well, I don't know, a cuff you would also be pulling. I'm not pulling it tighter, it's the same width as the top of the pocket. So I'm simply finishing the pocket with this pink instead of folding it over and creating a hem. Okay, so there is one top of pocket. So you just want to make sure that you are catching all 3 of those layers when you're sewing, but otherwise I'm simply sewing straight across to finish that top edge of the cardigan. Okay, so there it is, top edge finished. And we're going to keep all of these bands because we probably will have to sew them together to create the binding around it. All right, so here's the front of the cardigan, and we're going to attach our pockets in a moment. But before we do that, I'm going to sew up the back back seam. And I know this is the back piece because it has a little bit of a curved neckline. The front actually doesn't have any neckline at all. It simply comes straight forward, so it hangs kind of down. It doesn't have any curve. So I'm just gonna stitch up this back. And I'm, like all of my free patterns, I have added 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance. So I'm using that when I'm sewing, which when you're sewing with the serger means you're just trimming off a slight amount of fabric and then using the serger stitch as, the serger stitch is about 1/4 inch wide. So you don't want to trim off too much, and then your final result is a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Because I sew as much as I possibly can on my serger, that's my preferred. Oh, one side got, it's weird. You know how sometimes your serger feeds it through weird? I wonder if my differential feed is still off. It's very uneven. I'm going to have to trim that. It's like an inch difference when I got to the bottom. I don't love that. Okay, let's open this up and see. Okay, it looks good. There is our back seam. You can see through that. And this waffle knit is pretty light, so this is kind of going to be a lighter sweater. You can use this pattern with sweater knits, or I've used it with French terry, anything that has a little bit of a stretch. It's a pretty loose fit cardigan, so you know it has a good look. So you can try out a lot of different options for that. So before I forget, I'm going to trim. I do not know why this back got so uneven, so I'm just going to even it up a little bit instead of picking it out and starting over. So hopefully it, I don't know. Hopefully it all works out. I'm positive that it will. All right. So before we sew the back and the front together, the next thing we need to do is attach the pockets to the front sides of the cardigan. So I'm going to go ahead and open these up in mirror, right? So the center here is going to be the open part of the cardigan, and then this is the side seam. So now what I need to do is pin or clip, or however you're based if you want to, the 3 sides of this pocket. So all but the top, we're going to attach around the cardigan so that as we assemble it, this gets kind of sewn into these side seams and when we add the binding onto the front. So this edge is gathered, so it doesn't want to lay super flat. It's kind of wanting to pucker, so I'm going to add a couple more clips on the gathered side than I am on the non-gathered side, just to make sure it's all staying in place. So, all right. Okay, so you can see, if I could pull it across, there's my pocket with the gathered side seam pinned on. And I wonder if the top wider than I want it to be. I wonder if I should just pull it a little bit across and trim it, tighten it up just a little bit on the inside seam. Okay, so here's the other one. So I'm just matching the corners, and really you want the right side of the cardigan facing up at you and the right side of the pocket, right? So I don't have wrong sides together. I have both the right sides facing me, because that when we're done, that's what we want showing, is the right sides of the fabric. So yeah, I don't know if it's because I put that band on that made it a little bit too wide. I have not, like I said, I've done this gathered hack before and I don't remember it gaping so much. So I am maybe just going to stretch and pin that top band a little bit and trim off just a little bit of the top of the pocket to make sure that it stays nicer. That one looks a lot nicer. And yeah, so I just went ahead and pinned that on. Okay, so now we have the front of the cardigans, and let's see. So I think we'll sew the side seams. Trying to think what I want to do first. So I'm going to match the ends of this. Oh, you know what I didn't cut? Our sleeve cuffs. Because yeah, you could just hem it, but you can also cuff it. So I wonder if I have enough. Probably have enough of this to create cuffs. So we'll put that to the side and we'll create our cuffs after we do everything else. Okay, so yes, we're going to sew down the sleeve, around the underarm. It's just a curve. The sleeve is a dolman style sleeve. And then we're gonna come down and put our pocket into the side seam, okay? So let's go ahead and sew one side and see how it looks. The cardigan itself without the pockets is actually a super basic shape because, like I said, you know, it's just a dolman shape, curved underarms, and then you put some cuffs on the end of the sleeve, you put some bands around it, and you have yourself a cardigan. So it's a great sort of, I don't know if it's totally a beginner, but definitely a easier sewing pattern to get started, especially if you want to start sewing something for yourself and kind of tip your toes into garment sewing. Okay, so here on the side seam, I am sewing over those gathers and I'm trying to, the pocket is actually sandwiched between the front and back of the cardigan. And so I'm trying to sew that nicely between there. There's my scissors. Okay, so now we can open up this side and we should be able to see the cardigan, the pocket in one side seam. So looks good. I don't mind that it's a little bit droopy. My other ones are like that too. I think when you pull this over, it will be pretty good, but it's definitely an oversized pocket. So that top hem, even if it is a hem, does have a little bit of droop, and it did that before as well. So this isn't entirely new. I think it's just a little bit saggier than I was remembering it being when I've made this before. Okay, so again, with right sides together, starting at the end of the sleeve, sewing the underarm and down by the pocket. Do you think I could use a sweatshirt as my fabric for the cardigan if I took the sweatshirt apart? So you're saying you already have a sweatshirt and you want to make the cardigan out of it? I totally think you could. Yeah, depending on your sweatshirt fabric. I think fabric that has a bit of a drape, meaning it hangs nicely, is best for this style cardigan because it is kind of boxy. So if your fabric is boxy, then it might look kind of bulky on you, but sweatshirts and sweaters can be bulky, and if that's the worst thing that happens, I think it would totally still keep you warm. So yeah, go for it. I love if you can reuse things as well. You know, I love reusing fabrics all the time. All right, so now I'm to the part of the cardigan again on that side seam where I'm trying to sew the gathered fabric between the layers of my cardigan, and it's definitely a little bit thicker through there, sewing those layers, but it works. Oh, I was like, why doesn't it have a closure? Well, I haven't sewn the shoulder seams, so it's just a big floppy piece right now. I was like, what is going on? Okay, so let's sew the shoulder seams so we can look at this a little bit better and see how it, there. Okay, so now you can see how it'll come together. So I'm gonna sew from one end of the sleeve, and then again, the straight edge of the front, it's just a corner, matches up with the top peak where that back dips just a little bit, right? So that's what we're matching up, okay? So we're going along that top shoulder seam. And once I finish this part, I will go back and we'll cut some cuffs. I forgot to prepare that. And we'll add those on to the end of the sleeves. I might try this on to see how long the sleeves are, to see if I want to make the cuffs longer, like a full, try to make it full sleeve or keep it 3/4 sleeve. All right, so that gives it a bit more structure. And let's do the same thing to the other side so we can actually see what we're working with. Okay, starting at the end of the sleeve again, and then sewing up towards the neckline. Are using a zigzag or a knit stitch for this, you want to make sure you're not stretching out your seams, that you are trying to sew them as flat as possible. Okay, almost to the top. Here's those 2 points I need to line up. Okay, so now we can turn this, let's see. Yeah, I probably should have stretched the top of the pocket to make it gather up a little bit and tighten up those edges. But you can see here, I think it's coming together nicely. Okay, so there's one side of the pocket and here's the other side of the pocket. So I think we've got a good start going. I think this this waffle knit is thinner than some of the other fabrics I've sewn with, so it is stretching a bit more. So we'll have to see how that goes. Okay, so I am now going to sew these strips of fabric together so that when I'm going around sewing my binding, I can just keep sewing around. And I'm going to add binding to 2 places on this cardigan. So we're going to go all the way around the front, and then we're going to go around the bottom as well. So you could hem the bottom or you can add the binding to it. It's up to you. And if you really cared where that seam that I just sewed hits, then you could line that up like on the back neckline or another spot. But this is just for me, so I'm just going to go ahead and sew it and not really care where that little seam lays. All right, so now we're going to start here at the bottom of where we have the pocket. So we have, for a little bit, 4 layers of fabric. So 1 layer of cardigan, 1 layer of pocket, and 2 layers of my binding here. And I'm not really stretching this binding, but I would say maybe I'm putting a tiny bit of pressure on this hand just to make sure that it keeps sort of the shape around the front of the cardigan and doesn't stretch it out. I don't want it to be too wide. So I'd rather just give it a little bit of a stretch to try and keep some of that structure around the cardigan front. So we will be going all the way up the front, around the back neckline, and then down the other side. And then from there, we'll do the same thing around the bottom, and that way I can avoid all hems of other kinds and simply sew this whole thing using my serger. But I have sewed this, I think if you look at the Pocket Hack tutorial post, that version has, I think it's hemmed. Probably with my cover stitch, which I don't have right now. So maybe that's why I'm trying to avoid the hems at all costs. So I just passed that back center seam, and now I'm working my way down the front of the cardigan. Again, just a tiny pull with this, and like we said, I probably should have pulled and stretched it a bit across the top of the pocket to give that a little bit more structure across the top, rather than have it be floppy. But I'm not going to go back and fix that now. But I am just taking off a tiny bit of that top pocket band to tighten it up just a little bit. So here's my seam. I actually got really close to making it all the way around the shirt with the one cut of fabric. And again, I was working with scraps, so I didn't have a lot of say in the length of this. Okay, just making sure I caught the back of the cardigan in there. Okay, so there's the pink around it. I think That's looking really good. And there's one pocket and the other pocket. So fun. I do love the oversize, okay? And I will put this on and show you after we get it finished. Actually, I'll probably put it on here in a moment so we can measure how long I want to make the cuffs. Okay, so let's talk about this. So here's the bottom edge of the front, and I want to put a band instead of a hem on the whole bottom of the cardigan. Now, I don't want any raw edges, so what I'm going to do is first take my binding and sew it right sides together. Usually I've got the wrong sides together, right sides together, and then turn it right side out to make a finished edge to my binding. And now that I'm gonna line up with the binding there so that when I open it up, we have a finished edge. Okay, so we'll do that and then we'll continue sewing around the whole bottom of this cardigan. Again, I'm just going to gently pull my binding Waffle knit can be really stretchy, so don't go crazy pulling it and making it all cinched in. But just a little gentle tug so that we don't have a stretched out look around the bottom of our cardigan. And I'm making sure when I'm sewing the part with the pocket that I am catching fully that bottom edge of the pocket, because this is securing it and closing off that hole. And you can see I'm not pinning, I'm just lining it up as I go, and that allows me to adjust the tension and add that gentle pull. All right, but what we do want to do is when we get closer to the edge, we're going to have to remove this from the serger and sew this closed again so we have another finished edge, right? I don't want a raw edge. So let's take a look at how we would do that. Okay, so we want this to be sewed the wrong way and then flipped right side out just like we did on the other side. So I'm going to mark where I want to sew with a pin, and then make sure you leave enough fabric that you can flip it to the right side. And I put my pin in wrong. Take your pin out. Okay, so now I'm going to sew it with right sides together, and then we'll be able to flip it right side out and have that finished edge. Okay, so there we finished it. Now we turn it out, and now we have a nice clean edge for that corner. And we want to make sure we pull and line it up so that that lines up just right with that front edge of the cardigan. Okay, so I now have a loose serger thread here where I tried to make this finished corner. So I do want to go ahead and pull that back inside, which will give it a more finished look and make sure this doesn't fray. And I'll do that to the other side as well. Cut all these loose threads. So now you can see it's all finished. This edge is finished, this was already finished, and that really helps to make our cardigan edges finished without having a hem. So that's how we're joining the two. I'm not sure if I want to call them bindings or cuffs or what along here. The finishes on the edge of the cardigan is what we're going to call them. Okay, and then there's the other side, and you can see it's finished here. This is a fold, so it looks all nice along there. All right, so let me put this on, and then we'll take a look at how long I want the cuffs to be. So sweater over sweater is of course a interesting feel, but look at how cute it is. My pockets are huge and lovely and so fun, right? I love how it's gathered along the side. That's my favorite look. If you find that your bindings are flipping up, you can always top stitch, or I usually find that after I wash it, they lay down much nicer. Okay, so here's the cuff, and so I want a good, what can I use to measure here? I don't have my, I don't know, that looks like 4 inches. 4 inches, I think we'll make a tight 4-inch cuff, and then, yeah, a tight 4-inch cuff. Let's see if we can cut that. And then we'll sew those cuffs on. So, you see I have this scrap of fabric here. And if I fold this up, I almost think it's going to be tall enough. 1, 2, 3, ooh, that's 4 inches right there. Okay. So, how, I want it pretty tight. So maybe like that wide. This is my process for cuff cutting, you guys, if I don't have a pattern piece. I just sort of lay my wrist on it and estimate how it's gonna look. All right, so I think that's 2 cuffs cut the same size, and that is gonna look cute on the end of this cardigan. So let's take this off and add that final piece to this project. Okay, so trying to think, one of the ones I have upstairs is not, I haven't shown you guys, I don't think. It's a white, I used white sweater knit, and then I think it does have floral pockets, and it's made with like Hakai, is that how you say it? Hakai sweater knit, so I really do like that one as well. All right, so I'm sewing that side seam of the cuff, and then I'm gonna go ahead and fold it over, and you guys can see here, I'm gonna sew this in the round. This is not my preferred cuff method, but I'm gonna do it since the sleeves are already sewn up. All right, so there's 1 cuff. Let's go ahead and sew the other one together. Oh my goodness, someone say your camera is all wonky. And I just didn't see it. You actually want to see what I'm sewing, that's better. And this is really going to gather in those looser ends of the cardigan as well, because you know, the sleeves are a pretty loose fit, which is why I was able to put it on over this sweater that I'm currently wearing. I really do like this cardigan usually over long sleeve t-shirts that are more fitted, or over short sleeve t-shirts as an extra layer. Usually not over a baggier sweater like I'm wearing today. All right, so I'm lining up the raw edges of this cuff. Okay, top and bottom. And we have 2 cuffs. And now we want to match the right sides together with the cardigan sleeve and the cuff. So I'm going to first start with the underarm. The underarm seam, and I'm going to put my side seam there on the underarm, and then we'll stretch it across to the other side. And we'll see if this waffle knit can stretch enough to put this cuff in. So I'm going to stretch it. And when you're sewing cuffs on, you generally have 3 layers of fabric. So I have 2 layers of my cuff and 1 layer of my cardigan. And while I'm sewing, I have to stretch the cuff to match the opening of the cardigan. And because I wanted my cuffs pretty tight, I'm having to stretch quite a bit to get the fabrics to match. But I think it looks good. Let's pull this sleeve out and take a look. Oh, so cute. See? There it is. And then I always like to check, make sure there's no holes. Let's do the same on the other side, and then I'll show you once again how this looks now that we actually finished the ends of the sleeves. I somehow totally forgot about that when I was cutting out the pieces for this, that, oh yes, I also need to finish this end. You could go ahead and make a narrow cuff on, I think my first green version might have a pretty narrow, more like band, so that it's loose and open on the end of the sleeve. Kind of more like a kimono look, you know, or you could use it as like a loose cover up. But this one, I want to be more fitted. So I'm definitely adding tighter cuffs. Okay, so I gotta pull my cuff fabric. Again, another reason why I like sewing it while it's flat, not in the round. I think it's a whole lot easier to pull and stretch this when I'm not also trying to keep it in a circle. But I didn't think about it till too late. Okay, so now we can pull the other cuff out, and shall we take another look at what this looks like on? Ooh, the sleeves are a beautiful length, so it's not tight, they're plenty long, the cuffs are long. My pockets are pretty on the side, and I like how it's long, so I can wear it with jeans or leggings or whatever I'm wearing it with. I will say it looks a little bit weird over this sweater that I'm wearing it with, but otherwise it's exactly how I wanted. And you can grab this free, so there's the fit of the arms, nice and loose, and this is even over a sweater. You can grab this free cardigan pattern with or without the pockets. You could just make it plain front and add the bindings as well. You could add no pockets. There's an sort of inside pocket that comes with the free pattern, or you can add on this large pocket hack that I just showed you today. So there's my new cardigan. I'm excited to wear it and have another layer as we change weather and transition seasons. It's always nice to have some layering pieces, and I like how the fabrics all came together on this one, and it's great to use up some scraps as well. So Next week, I might be sewing a couple kids things coming up in the next couple weeks. So I tried to make myself out a little bit of a schedule so I knew what was coming up. And yeah, so that's what we have going. I'm glad you guys tuned in today. I hope you have a great rest of your week. And I will see you next Wednesday with another fun sewing tutorial and project. Bye!